Battlefield is back. Battlefield 6 looks incredible. The Battlefield 6 trailer and reveal event seems to have given me hope.
Don't.
Don't what?
Don't give me hope.
The beta is also running smoother than previous betas. All I'm going to say about BF6 is I hope it's good. I say hope because most of the Battlefield community and probably most of the gaming community know DICE's previous release, 2042, wasn't a home run. However, the failure of 2042 goes beyond its performance. DICE really rocked the boat and changed things so fundamental to Battlefield that I question what DICE was thinking. DICE, in its infinite wisdom, decided that classes, a cornerstone of the Battlefield franchise, were outdated and stupid. Battlefield needed to get with the times. Hero shooters are big, and Battlefield needs to be big. They didn't just change the class system. DICE also added the ability to change weapon attachments on the fly, similar to Crysis, which does more damage to the gameplay balance than you might think. DICE also added environmental effects to the map. In their defense, every Battlefield since 4 has added an environmental gimmick to the map. BF4 had Levolution, BF1 was Behemoths, and BF5 was nothing. Just kidding, it was map fortifications. Levolution, in my opinion, was by far the most interesting and influential of the three. These events were player initiated for the most part and made the map's flow change, making for a more dynamic match. Battlefield 1's Behemoths were cool, but less influential. They're supposed to help the losing team catch up to make the game closer. Call in a Zeppelin, gun train, a dreadnought, and a bigger tank to help you out. However, one team is losing for a reason, and rarely did I ever see the Behemoth make a difference to how the match turned out. And for BF5, I don't think I've ever seen the fortifications be used to make a difference or be used, period. For 2042, DICE went with the weather effects. Now, to be fair, on paper and in the trailers, these are cool. Sandstorms, tornadoes, and rain. In practice, however, these effects were really a whiff. They never changed a match and acted more like an inconvenience, even though that's rare too. All of these additions to their respective games were supposed to affect the game's balance. But the weather effects were just lame. I don't think I ever really saw them make a difference to the game. The tornadoes might as well not be in the game, and sandstorms are more of an inconvenience. But the removal of the class system was by far the most egregious change that DICE made to this game that made it unrecognizable. 2042 was announced on June 9th, 2021. With one of the coolest trailers that DICE has made. The marketing team cooked with this one. It looked like Battlefield. Chaotic battles, jets, helicopters, tanks, a Rendazook. Then on June 19th, they showed us some gameplay, and it looked good. Then they showed us Battlefield Portal, which is DICE's community game mode similar to Forge from Halo, but instead of maps, it's just custom game modes like Modern Soldiers versus World War II. However, the next two trailers indirectly showed the true intentions of what 2042 was supposed to be. The Hazard Zone trailer on October 14th, and the Specialist trailer on October 21st. Hazard Zone was an attempt by EA to make a mainstream answer to Escape from Tarkov, just like Activision did with DMZ and Modern Warfare 2. Hazard Zone is an extraction shooter where the goal is to work with your squad to get data drives and leave the map before the storm circle closes in. The Specialist trailer showed that DICE had replaced the classic class system with Specialists. This was the first public nail in the coffin for 2042. This gameplay change irreversibly changed the course of 2042. But why, you may ask? Why is it so damaging? Don't worry, I also asked why when the trailer was released. For those who have not played Battlefield before, the franchise has always had classes with distinct roles to fill in the team. There are usually 4 classes: Assault, Engineer, Support, and Recon. But sometimes there's a distinct medic class. Each class has a role to fill. For example, Assault in BF3 and 4 had access to assault rifles and medic bags, but this has changed since 1 and 5, where the Assault lost the medic bag in favor of explosives. Engineer, usually in 3 and 4, had rockets as well as repair tools and access to carbines and SMGs. Support would get LMGs and access to ammo bags, and other team-oriented support items such as a trophy system which helped to stop grenades. Recon had snipers and was oriented around Battlefield's spotting mechanic. This is where if a player has been spotted, a red icon will be floating above their head and they will be spotted on the minimap to show their location.
Then I actually have to spot this player manually.
Recon's gadgets usually revolved around this mechanic. Each class had benefits and trade-offs. For example, in Battlefield 3 and 4, the Assault class was probably the most self-sufficient class in the game. Access to the best weapon class, and the ability to heal yourself. But they had to find a support player to get more ammo, and they had no way of dealing with enemy vehicles. Each class brought something to the team that made them valuable. Running an entire team of Assaults would be bad because they would not be able to deal with any tanks. Having no Assault players on your team meant no revives, meaning any death on your team is more impactful. But in 2042, DICE scrapped this system in favor of specialists, characters with unique abilities and special traits. For example, Sundance has access to cluster grenades and a wingsuit. This was a huge departure from the class system, as instead of unique classes that have distinct roles, it was specialists who sometimes had abilities that tangentially filled the roles of the class system. Angel can revive teammates and give ammo to them similar to both the medic and support classes. But then specialists like Sundance with a cluster grenade and wingsuit, these abilities don't represent any team-oriented roles. They're purely selfish gadgets that if your team didn't have someone playing Sundance, you wouldn't lose anything. This is only exacerbated by the fact that there are no weapon restrictions for specialists, meaning that theoretically you only need a team filled with Angel players. They can heal themselves and teammates, give ammo, and equip any weapon they want, including rockets. It's not just the specialists. The attachment system in 2042 is broken as well. The issue with the attachment system has to do with the quick swapping. This system was probably an in-game ease of use answer to players swapping scopes on the fly like in games such as PUBG and Apex. This means that you can have a weapon that is usable at most ranges. For a Battle Royale, this makes sense and makes the game more enjoyable. This is because in Battle Royales, your weapon selection is based off of what you find where you land. So, if you can't find a sniper or a long-range weapon, at least slapping a sniper scope on the weapon means you have a chance at distance, and then you just take it off when you don't need it. However, in Battlefield, this destroys the weapon balance. Battlefield's class system also included weapon restrictions for a reason. The weapon you had implicitly told you what kind of engagements your class specialized in. To refer to BF4 again, Assault had assault rifles, as this class was supposed to be useful on the front lines to keep the team healthy, and they needed the workhorse rifle to do it. The Engineer had SMGs, as they were not supposed to take open field engagements. They were the only class able to repair their vehicle, and therefore were meant to use their rockets and repair tool if not in vehicles, with the SMG as a personal defense option. The Support class had the LMG and were meant to lay down suppressive fire for their teammates backed up by their ammo box. And snipers were supposed to be in the back going for long-range shots and having information gathering tools to help your team find enemies.
That's a tank!
Was this a perfect system? No. Recon sitting in the back would often just ignore their teammates and try and go for cross-map headshots, or Assault players playing too selfishly, not healing or reviving their teammates. But keep in mind for 2042 that theoretically the perfect team was just a bunch of people playing Angel.
Don't be sad. Don't be sad. Don't be sad. Don't be sad. Don't be sad.
And all of those Angel players can just equip the M5A3, and with the quick swap system, can have an SMG, an assault rifle, and a long-range DMR all at the same time.
We are about to attack Alpha 1.
So there's not only no trade-offs for picking a specific specialist, but now there's no trade-offs for what weapon you pick. But why? Why did DICE decide to shift the Battlefield class system? I said earlier that the Specialists and Hazard Zone trailer showed the true intentions of what 2042 was. There are no confirmations for what I'm about to say, but players speculated that it was originally a Battle Royale. An article by GameRant from October 13th, 2021 guessed that the reason for 2042's turbulent development and clearly unfinished and not ready to launch beta was because the game started as a Battle Royale. Screen Rant on December 8th, almost a month after the release, went into more detail about this theory. They argue that the specialists were never balanced for large teams, but rather small squads similar to Apex Legends. As Screen Rant argues that the more free-form nature of loadouts in 2042 makes more sense if the idea is surviving as a team of 4 rather than a team of 64. Similarly, the weapon attachments having the quick swap mechanic would make sense in a battle royale. As previously discussed, games such as Apex and PUBG has players quick swapping scopes depending on the situation they're in. Now, the other reason that DICE probably chose to do specialists, or more aptly EA's decision to do specialists, was money.
That's right, folks. Longtime owner Mr. Krabs is opening a new restaurant called the Krusty Krab 2. First of all, congratulations, Mr. Krabs.
Hello, I like money.
The reality of modern gaming is that Fortnite has shown the full potential of monetizing your game with cosmetics, and EA wanted a slice of that pie to go with Apex. They wanted specialists so that you would buy skins for your favorite character. For me personally, the issue of specialists goes beyond money and game balance. There were issues with the specialists beyond game balance. DICE did not have a single player campaign for this game, probably another consequence of the game starting as a battle royale. But DICE still launched this game with a story, or to be more accurate, lore to why there's a conflict. And the reason is silly. Okay, so basically global warming has caused nations to close borders or collapse outright, causing over 1 billion people to be displaced and become refugees. These people form their own group known as non-patriots or no-pats. The specialists are part of this faction. The climate crisis also means that somehow Russia and the United States are the only 2 superpowers left. China somehow didn't survive the climate crisis. Then something called the Kessler syndrome happens. This is where the density of objects in low Earth orbit becomes too big, and they start to collide, creating exponentially more debris. This causes a communication blackout around the globe, causing supply line shutdowns and global chaos. Russia and the US logically blame each other for the global blackout. Then, Russia and the US start a proxy war with each other using the no-pats to maintain plausible deniability. Okay, this is really stupid. 2042 is a sequel to Battlefield 3 and 4, narratively meaning that the US and Russia have already had a conflict with each other. Why would Russia and the United States fight a proxy war in a scenario where they're the only 2 countries not impacted by the climate crisis? If they've already fought and neither one nuked each other, what would the difference be now? Plausible deniability? To who? If these 2 are the only relevant countries on the world stage, who are they fooling by sending no-pats to fight on their behalf? Also, the wiki says that they are fighting over food and fuel supplies. If the 2 most stable countries on the planet are fighting over food, why wouldn't they send their actual army to fight and guarantee success? There is no logical reason Russia or the US would be using PMCs to fight for them if the 2 remaining superpowers on the planet are fighting over food. It's not even plausible deniability to their own citizens. I'm not sure of any citizenry who would argue against making sure all the civilians are fed. But hey, they needed a reason to explain why the specialists exist in the first place, and I guess this worked for them. But the issue of specialists not making sense in the lore extends to the gameplay. Battlefield has always been immersive in the sense that everybody in your team was just a nameless soldier for whatever nation you're fighting for. America versus Russia in Bad Company 1, 2, and Battlefield 3. Battlefield 4 added China to that mix. Battlefield 1 had most of the major nations represented in World War I. Battlefield 5 was similar to Battlefield 1, but with the odd exclusion of the Soviet army, which for a World War II game just seems odd. But I think I've made it clear at this point that I'm not a big fan of Battlefield 5. However, in 2042, because you're playing as a unique specialist that can be hired to both factions, there is no team branding. Sundance fighting for Russia is no different than Sundance fighting for the USA. There is zero immersion. If the announcer did not have an accent and there were no team names on the scoreboard, there would be almost zero way to tell what faction you're fighting for. It's just 2 nameless armies with the same looking people fighting each other. But correction, it's not even same looking people. It is literally the same people fighting each other. Now, there is something that I have not mentioned yet, AI teammates. If a lobby can't be filled, in order to make the lobby seem more active, it will fill the lobby with AI teammates. I actually don't have an issue with this. It's a fine way to make a lobby seem more active. And the thing is, these AI teammates have uniforms based on their class and nation, like previous games. Why do specialists not use these uniforms?
Money!
Right, whatever. The specialists do not fit into this world as actual people either. They have voice lines that feel like they were not written with any knowledge of the world these characters belong to. When in the context of the overall narrative, you know, people fighting for food in a climate-ravaged world, these are very tone-deaf.
Ooh, sorry.
I mean, I am as shocked as you.
What are you so happy about? You just killed people for food. The removal of the class system was probably the most damaging change to 2042. Regardless of the bugs in the game at launch, which there were many, in my opinion is not the reason Battlefield 2042 failed. The specialist system was a colossally stupid decision that breaks the balance of the game and ruins the immersion. The specialists make no sense in a Battlefield game from the perspective of game balance, but also in the world that DICE wrote for them. Although the narrative issues were never fixed, and to be honest I wouldn't expect them to as most people don't have the level of nitpicking that I do on narrative issues, they did attempt to rectify the class issue. On January 19th, 2023, 2 years after the initial release of the game, DICE released a dev notes post. Return to the class system. DICE had retroactively looked at the specialists that were in the game and categorized them based on what class they would have fit into. Assault, Engineer, Support, and Recon. Gadgets were now locked to their respective classes. Assault has anti-infantry focus gear, Engineer now has anti-tank, Support has medic and ammo bags, Recon has info gathering tools like motion sensors. This update did not solve the underlying problem. It's not just the weapons, but artificially putting categories to the specialists didn't really make a difference. The specialists were already filling the roles of the classes just imperfectly. If we go back to my hypothetical team of all angels, now it's not all angel, but half angel and half an engineer of choice. There's no consequences on the weapon choice. They did attempt to make some restrictions to the weapons, but not by blanketly restricting them, but by giving classes weapon proficiencies. Assault gets 3 extra mags with ARs, Engineers get better accuracy with LMGs while prone or crouched, Supports can ready their SMGs faster, and Recons have no scope sway with snipers. These passives are not enough to make me want to switch Specialist to use a different weapon class. With Angel, if I want to use the M5A3, I lose 3 extra mags, but as Angel I carry infinite ammo. To me, all this update proved was that 2042 was truly unsalvageable. The Specialist system fundamentally broke the balance of the game. DICE and other developers should learn from the mistakes of 2042. Drastically changing a core mechanic of your game is a huge gamble that, if it doesn't pay off, destroys your game. But hey, it looks like DICE learned with BF6. Hopefully it's good.